there, YouTube friends. I'm going to be doing a tutorial today using a chain that I've already pre-made, and in the end of that chain I have put a stitch marker to kind of hold it so I know, because I am going to take this out at the end of my project, so it does have that stitch marker there to kind of hold my spot. The thing about this chain is it's scrap yarn, but it is nothing special. It's just some white that I had laying around, and it's the same weight and same material as the project that I'm working on. I'm using Red Heart 4-weight acrylic yarn, and that's what this is. It doesn't necessarily have to be Red Heart and Red Heart. It can be like Walmart brand and Red Heart, or, you know, as long as you have a 4-weight acrylic yarn, if that's what you're using. You know, if you're using a 5-weight wool, then use 5-weight wool. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same brand name. And to start off, I want to start, it's kind of backwards from what you'd think. You'd start at the end that you started with, but that's not the case. The case is you want to start, and this chain, if you're, you know, it's actually advisable if you do it maybe like 4 or 5 longer than what you really want to cast on. So you don't have to start in that very end. You can skip down a couple. And so you see how a chain stitch has these little V thingies. Okay, so we're not working on that side. We're flipping it over to the bumpy side. See how it has those little bumps on the back end? And so we're working from the end on the back side. And I don't do anything special to get started. I just make sure that I leave a little bit of a tail, because I mean, there's not really any way to secure it in the beginning until I get a few stitches down. So I just make sure I leave a plenty long tail. And then I stick the needle in, which I'm using a size 11, and it's an 8mm hook. I mean an 8mm needle, and I used, I think, maybe a 7.5mm hook. You know, I use something similar. I don't use like a 4mm hook for, you know, size 11 needles. It just doesn't work. Just as long as it's similar, you know, it could be 7.5, 8, something like that. The point is, you don't want it too tight because you're not going to be able to stick your needle up in through there. And so I am working on the back side. I yarn over, oops, and I mean, this is going to happen, you know, of course it is, because this is real life. And it is harder for me because I am working around a camera. Well, there we go. Okay, got it. Well, you know, only when you go to do tutorials, right? But this kind of just shows, hey, I'm human and I struggle just like you guys. I'm not perfect. So anyway, enough about that. This is my long tail. My tail end. This is my working yarn this way. So that's another thing. You want to make sure that you're using your working yarn and not your tail end, because you'll run out. There we go. Got it. I just want to snug that down a little bit on the other end there, and I'm going to do a couple more before I do anything with that tail end. And so, like I said, I am going to be taking this out when I get done, this white. when I get to a certain point in my project. And so it's going to leave live stitches, which, you know, in another video I will show you what to do with those. So I've got 4 stitches on here, just like this. And I'm going to take this tail back here, because remember, it's not knotted or attached to anything. And I'm going to pull this little, you can secure this however you want to secure it. This is just what I do because this is not a permanent thing here. Take my crochet hook and just pull it through that little loop, just like that. I mean, however you want to pull it through there. And then I just tighten that back down. And so, I mean, it's obviously not, you know, gonna go anywhere, but when you get to crochet, or when you get to knitting in the round, you need to be mindful that that is still loose. And you just continue on in that manner. Just picking up those stitches. Just like that. Okay, so now I've gotten all the way around my chain and I've laid it flat out on the table. Now if you'll notice, all of my white is in the middle here. And that, if you're going to be crochet, or I'm sorry, I keep saying crocheting because I'm using crocheting and knitting. If you're going to knit in the round, you want to make sure you have no twists. So I make sure to, and that's another good reason for this contrasting white here, because you can see that it's all in the middle and nothing is twisted around, you know, like this or whatever. You know, you can, it's all, and you can have it toward the outside or the inside, it doesn't matter, as long as it's all pointed the same direction. Now I do want you to notice, see how that looks like your chain, like you could just come back in there and pick that up on a crochet hook. It's all that chain stitch, and I have picked up stitches in the back end of it. So, you know, it's all in the back. One thing to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to take this end of my yarn, and I'm also going to tuck that, remember, back here at the beginning in this one that has the stitch marker in it that I haven't really done anything with. I'm going to tuck it in here as well. Just like that, and tighten my loop down, just like so. Okay, and we're going to pick this up. And I'm left-handed, so all of my stuff is going to be backwards to you. I'm going to pull that, hold on. Okay. There we go. Now then, make sure this is out here. This is my working yarn back here. This is my working yarn. And see, these are the things you don't think about when you're making a video. I tucked that in first, and I didn't make sure I had my working yarn out of the way. There you go. I'm just human like you guys, and I'm not perfect. If you want perfection, go see somebody else, because I am definitely not that. So I just put that yarn back in there. Now, when we're going in the round here, this is how I knit. And I'm trying to be mindful that, just tighten that down, that everything is still kind of loose here at the end because nothing has been tied off. It's just all in that one slip knot. Oops. Hold on, my friends, I gotta fix that. And so see what's happened there is I only got like part of the yarn through. So at this point I'm going to use a crochet hook to fix it because I wasn't paying attention earlier. Come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. And so now I've got all of my plies up through there. All right, now then, back to where I was. And so this is the setup that I used for my tube hat that I was talking about in some of my previous videos. Now, you may notice that I keep switching back and forth. Sometimes I go in the back and sometimes I go in the front. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I guess it's just by feel that I know. So when I go this way, you see how it's open and not crossed at the bottom there? If I were to go like this, it just feels wrong. So I think I might have, well, my first one might have just been in there backwards. This is what's called knitting through the back loop. When you go through the back, I'm picking up the front part of the loop. Now there's a lot of things I don't know how to explain in correct knitting terminology because I am self-taught, and a lot of it I've had to figure out on my own. For the longest time I could not figure out why my knitting was so tight. I was knitting in the back loop for everything and my stitches were twisted. So I find that my tension is much looser if I go this way. And because I mean there is another way where you can like actually, I don't know, I can't, it's hard for me to, I guess I am knitting left-handed proper this way, because I had a friend tell me when I first started knitting that I wasn't knitting left-handed and I wasn't knitting right-handed, that she'd never seen anybody knitting like me because I was actually picking this up and throwing it. And so anyway, I've finally learned, and something else that I do differently is I can go back and forth, whereas most people have to turn their yarn or turn their work when flat knitting. So I'm trying to get to the end here to show you what happens at the end. So like I said, I have my size 11 needles here, and this is what I am making my tube hats out of. I've casted on 50 stitches. Now, some people, if you knit tight, you may have to go up a couple of stitch sizes, maybe one, maybe two, just depending on how tight. I was able to knit a hat that fit my head using this size and this kind of yarn, which is a 4-weight. Okay, we're getting back around over there. And you see this is messy down here. This is, and I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be messy. But it's okay because the type of hat we're making, you don't want it super loose, but if it's a little bit loose, no big deal. It'll get all cleaned up in the middle, or I mean at the end. But I'm hoping I can kind of fix it up here at the end of this. Okay, so this is the last one, and I'm going to pick up this one and hold it with this yarn right here. But make sure you don't get the wrong one. Which, did I get the wrong one? No, I didn't get the wrong one. And I just kind of snug this down a little bit. And there you go, you just keep on trucking. Now I am gonna stop here. I've done 3. I'm gonna put my stitch marker in because I really want to keep track. And it goes right there. I want to keep track of the number of rows I'm doing. And so I put my stitch marker in right there, and I turn to 1 on my nifty little ring. And then I just pick it up and keep going again. I do recommend, if you're going to take your stuff off, to put your needle points on, because I don't want you dropping your hard work. But I'll be back to show you in another video what to do with this once we get all done. So for right now, we're just doing a basic in the round knitting. I forget, 27 times 3, whatever that is. I'll do 27 rows of one color, 27 of another color, and then 27 of a third color. And that's basically my hat recipe. That's my reversible inside out hat. So I will be back to show you more. Thanks for watching.